I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me for this 30-minute yoga practice. I'm standing on a yoga mat. If you don't have a yoga mat, you will notice I'm also standing on my living room rug. So you could use your rug or a carpeted area in your house as your yoga mat for today. I have a couple of yoga blocks. You can use thick books as a substitute for blocks, and we'll actually get started using this prop, so that's something to take note of. And I have a folded blanket, which is truly the folded blanket from my couch, but maybe you use your bath towel or a beach towel, something that might work for giving you some height or padding knees. The way we'll start is almost like a child's pose, except you could think of it as a sort of sassy child's pose and an opportunity to get into a bit of a heart opener and shoulder opener right out of the gate. So I'm taking my 2 blocks, and they are shoulder distance, maybe slightly wider than shoulder distance on the ground. I have my blocks at their lowest. I'm not exactly sure what you're using as yoga blocks, so you can adjust. But you do want to be able to fit your elbows on your blocks. Then you lift your butt up. This is the sassy part of your child's pose. And your forehead might rest on the ground. If it doesn't, that's fine. But we make a prayer behind our back. And we will hang out here and find our breath and our inward turn and a feeling of some openness in our shoulders. Allow your breath to come in and out through your nose if that's doable. If not, any way that you can breathe. But let's try to bring some awareness into our breath. Fully aware of our inhales. Fully aware of our exhales. "30 seconds of silence here in sort of a little bit of a prayer. A humble bow. Now you don't have to worry, there's not going to be a quiz at the end of this, but this is shoulder flexion that we are in. And as we come up and come off of our blocks, we'll actually head into what's called shoulder extension, and that's Sphinx pose. So Sphinx pose, we'll lie on our bellies, bring our forearms parallel to the long edges of our mat. And then we're bringing our chest through the gateway of our arms, and our shoulders are actually not fully in what I just mentioned, the extension I just mentioned, but they will be as we begin to think about forming things like cobra pose. Let's find intelligence in this framework, though. Press into the tops of your feet and let your kneecaps lift. Almost feel like you're trying to tuck your tailbone. It won't happen because the ground is there, but it'll take some of the emphasis out of our low back. Same thing with our neck. It's already doing a back bend, so let's let that stay neutral, chin parallel to the ground. And then as you traction your elbows towards you, you're looking to draw your chest through that gateway, which is your arms. A couple moments here. Lower down. Make a pillow with your hands, bend your knees, windshield wipe your legs back and forth. It's a nice release for your low back. Now release the tops of your feet onto your mat again and come to Sphinx first. Feel the recipe of Sphinx. Lower down enough that you can relocate your hands next to your ribs. Our elbows don't fall out to the side. They're just brushing against us. And now we traction our hands back. Remember, we're trying not to overuse our neck, trying not to overuse our low back. So press into the tops of your feet actively. Kneecaps lift off the ground. Tailbone pretends like it's going to tuck. And this is our cobra pose. And when we start to flow our sun salutations, you are welcome to use either this one or the Sphinx pose that we just did. Lower down, make that pillow with your hands, bend your knees, windshield wiper your legs a couple of times. Now curl your toes under, slide your hands to where they were for cobra. So next to your ribs, elbows are in, belly is firm, come to all fours in one piece. Once we're on all fours and in one piece, let's really talk a little bit about how it is that we want to use our arms in planks and so on. So we're not too far back, we're not too far forward with our shoulders. Hi, Tibby. You can think shoulders right over your wrists. And as you push into the ground, it's not a collapse. So what we found when our shoulder blades move towards each other in our back bends and our Sphinx pose is not happening here. We're pushing the ground away, and we have what's called protraction in our shoulder blades, kind of gliding away from each other. Then we feel our core step into the mix. And speaking of stepping, let's step our right foot back, and then our left foot back. And we are in a plank position. Now, for the purposes of our sun salutations, let's remember this shape and bring our knees down. So we're not hands and knees anymore. Our knees have moved back a little bit so that we can actually fashion a plank that is modified, you might say, like we've got our kickstand down. Let's think about being in one piece. And even though we're pushing the ground away, we let our elbows bend, and as slowly as we can, we lower down onto our belly. Uncurl your toes like we did. Now introduce either your Sphinx pose or your cobra pose to where we are. And then lower down. Remember the all fours that we came into. Curl your toes under, strong through our core. We come into all fours. And then from all fours, think about when we had our elbows on our blocks, right? We were kind of sassy with our butt to the sky. Feel that happen, push the ground away, and we come into down dog. Our shoulders are actually doing the same thing as when our elbows were on the blocks, even though it doesn't quite feel like the same assignment. Step your feet as wide as your mat to get started here. We don't want to crumble into our arms, so push the ground away and feel like there's a hook in your tailbone taking you up to that corner where the ceiling and the wall meet. I'm on my tiptoes and I have my knees bent. And that's giving me a little bit more opportunity for space in my torso. We want a really long spine, but also side body and front body as we're here. Walk forward. Our feet come all the way up to our hands, and they're hip distance and parallel to those long edges of our mat. Slide your hands onto your shins, your ankles, maybe up to your thighs. Inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, fold in, slide your hands down. Then rise, reach, inhale, arms to the sky, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. We stand in our mountain, palms face out. Let's pause in our mountain and feel the steadiness and evenness of our feet. And see if we can't find a steadiness and evenness in our breath as well. Sun salutation A. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs or shins or ankles. Inhale, glide your hands up, lift your heart up. Bend your knees deeply. Palms go flat so that we can access our down dog from here as we step back and remember the hook in our tailbone and push the ground away. Shift so that we are shoulders over wrists. Remember, we took a moment to find that. Let your knees come down for our modified plank and feel your core get strong. Elbows brush your ribs as we come all the way down onto our belly. Uncurl your toes for cobra or Sphinx pose. Lower back down enough that we can curl our toes under and in one piece come through all fours. Then the hook in our tailbone takes us to downward facing dog. Maybe your feet now are hip distance. Maybe you're beginning to straighten your legs a little bit. I wouldn't be in a rush to find those things. Let's walk forward, feet to our hands, feet hip distance and parallel. Inhale, slide your hands up. Exhale, hinge at your hips and fold. Inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Then we stand in our mountain with our palms facing out. Again, just like that. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins or ankles. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart, bend your knees deeply enough that our palms find the ground. We step back to down dog with as wide a stance as we need. Push the ground away, lift your hips high. Then shift to plank, shoulders over wrists, knees down, all the way to our belly. Uncurl your toes, either a cobra pose or a sphinx. Lower back down, curl your toes under in one piece. We come to all fours, and then our hips lift us up and back for down dog. Once again, we'll walk forward. We'll take one more of those sun salutations. Feet hip distance. Inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, fold back in. Rise, reach. Inhale, arms to the sky. And then we stand in our mountain, palms face out. Last of our sun salutation, A's. Inhale, V shape, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, shins or ankles. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart, bend your knees, palms go flat. Step back to downward facing dog. Shift shoulders over wrists in our plank, and then our knees carefully come to the ground. And we lower all the way onto our belly. Uncurl your toes, let it be a cobra or sphinx pose. Lower back down enough that we can curl our toes under, come to all fours. And then our hips lift us up and back to down dog. We will empty out and then walk our feet forward to our hands again. They're hip distance and parallel. Inhale, glide your hands up, lift your heart. Exhale, fold in, slide your hands down. Then rise and reach. Inhale, arms to the sky, thumbs to the sky, and we stand in our mountain pose. Adding a few tricks up our sleeve to our sun salutations, let's first organize our props. We want to take our 2 blocks tall off the 2 sides of our mat. So you'll notice that I am facing the short edge and that I have not put these directly underfoot. That is important. Let's begin with a chair pose. So bend your knees, V shape, thumbs to the sky. Instead of a chair that's up in our knees, really think of a chair that isn't there that you're sitting down into. And then exhale, fold hands to thighs, shins or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart, slide your hands up, bend your knees deeply, palms go flat, we step to down dog. This time in down dog, lift your right leg back behind you. Step your right foot forward. Now for many, if not most of us, that's going to mean helping it along, and there is no shame in that. Then bring your 2 books or blocks into the mix. Let's do this slowly. We will walk our right foot to the right a little bit. Turn our back foot flat on its side, and then begin to straighten our front leg. Now, if that is a game of rounding, let's instead find a way where we can almost feel the traction of our Sphinx pose happen as we use our hands on our blocks. We'll need that core strength that we found when we lowered onto our bellies. And we're sort of thinking right hip dialing back, left hip dialing forward just a little. This might be where you return in a moment, but I am going to give you an option. Bring your hands to your hips, firm your belly, come to standing. Once we're standing, arms out to the side, thumbs face down. We'll make a prayer behind our back. It could be that you press your fists together. That's a perfectly good prayer for our purposes. Or palms together behind your back, sort of like an upside down version of what we did on our blocks earlier. You have the option of staying just like this, upright with your prayer behind your back. Or you might start to hinge at your hips. If you are finding that there's no sharp pain, there's no, oh, I'm not sure about my lower back, or I'm not sure about my right hamstring happening, you can stay like this. You can also distribute your hands back onto those blocks. So upright, fold with a prayer, or fold with your hands on blocks. And a few moments together here. Let's come upright, free our hands for those of us who have a prayer happening. Take your hands onto your blocks, bend your front knee, spin on your back toes. Scoot your blocks out of your way, palms flat, we step to a down dog. Many of us will stay in down dog. A few of us are going to come into that plank, bring our knees to our mat, lower to our belly like we've done in our sun salutation. Uncurl your toes into a cobra or an up dog if that's what you're up to. Lower down. Once again, curl your toes under in one chunk, all fours. And then down dog like a hook in our tailbone. Left leg lifts behind us, and then we'll step our left foot forward, and we have no shame in helping it along. Let's trot our blocks into the mix and really refine this as well. So left foot over to the left a bit, right foot, back foot flat, and then we begin to straighten our front leg, and we realize, oh, one side might feel really different from the other, and we respect that. We note it, we honor it, we respect it. This might be where some of us return. Firm your belly, hands to hips, come upright. Once again, we fashion our prayer or our fist bump behind our back. And then we'll start to hinge at our hip. And remember, keeping a long spine, and then you are the expert of your own body. If there's sharp pain, uncertainty about your low back or your hamstring, you either come back upright or you take your hands to support you on blocks or books. And then we soak here for a few moments. If your hands are in a prayer, come upright. Let's free our arms out to the side and up to the sky, and then we'll join our friends with hands on blocks. Then bend your front knee, spin on your back toes. Scoot your blocks out of the way, off to the side, step to down dog. Once we're in down dog, lift your right leg back behind you. Step that right foot forward, help it along. Anything you need to do, up we go. Crescent pose. Now this crescent pose could be a lunge with your back knee carefully on your mat instead, if that feels better to you. You might walk your right foot over to the right a little bit to create some sideways space here. Now interlace your hands behind your back, and for a moment drag that interlace down and lift your heart up. Now not your chin, always something to kind of pay attention to. If your knee is not down on the ground and you feel yourself pitching forward, you might just add a little bend to that back knee so it feels more doable to be upright. And then bend your elbows and take your interlace right atop your right hip. Once it's there, magnetize your elbows towards each other. They may or may not kiss. And we feel all sorts of inspiration here in our body to uplift our heart. And we breathe. 3 moments. Let your interlace drag down, then arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Use your blocks to help you on your way down if you'd like to. Ultimately, move them aside once your hands get to a position where they can get flat on the ground, and we step into our down dog. From down dog, we shift it to a plank, bring our knees to our mat, lower onto our belly. Uncurl our toes into cobra. Lower down in one piece, we come to all fours, and then our hips lift us up and back for down dog. Lift your left leg behind you, step that through. We fashion a crescent pose, so you can use your blocks on the way up if you want to, or just situate them where they'd be easier to find. You might step your left foot over the left. You might be a candidate for deciding to put your back knee down on your mat. Once we're upright, interlace and let it be the other pinky on the bottom. I wouldn't sweat that if it's hard to figure out. You might add a little bend to your back knee if you are someone who is keeping that back knee off your mat. We bend our elbows and tuck our interlace onto our left hip. And then we magnetize our elbows towards one another here, and they may or may not agree to kiss on this side. A couple moments like this. Then take your interlace off of your hip, drag it down, take your arms out and up to the sky. Hands to your blocks on the way down if it's helpful. Move your blocks so you can step to down dog. Press into your hands, lift your hips up and back. Option to stay here or to come to our plank. Bring your knees to your mat. Lower all the way down onto your belly. Uncurl your toes and come into a cobra. And then curl your toes under to come through all fours. And make your way to downward facing dog. From down dog, walk your feet forward to your hands. Slide your hands up. Inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, fold back in. Rise, reach, arms to the sky, thumbs to the sky. And then we stand in our mountain, palms facing out. We will move our props a little bit. So both blocks are now off what will become the back edge of our mat as we step wide out to the side. Once you're out to the side, measure ankles underneath wrists and then turn heels in and toes out. We will bend our knees as if we're doing a little bit of a plie and then a prayer behind our back. In this position, it could be a fist bump. It might be a prayer with your palms facing one another. And then we'll pause and we'll breathe. Oof. Three moments together here. Straighten your legs, turn your toes to face the long edge of your mat. Thanks for protecting us, Tippy. Interlace your hands behind your back, lift your heart, inhale. And then cascade your arms up and over for a forward fold here. Let your head relax, your shoulders release. Carefully, hands on your hips, a little bend to your knees, and we bring ourselves all the way upright. Heels in, toes out once again for our plie, arms out to the side. This time, right hand pats you on the back, as if it were doing what we did on our blocks at the very beginning, if you think about it. Now, left thumb faces down and either the back of your left hand to the small of your back, or you move that as if doing a prayer behind your back the opposite way. So we've got right elbow to the sky and left arm up your back. We'll straighten our legs, pause for a second so our poor little legs get a break. Extend our arms wide out to the side, and before we bend our knees again, let's fashion side two. Left elbow bends up to the sky, you're patting yourself on the back. Right thumb faces down, back of your hand to the small of your back. You can walk that hand up. They might reach towards each other. And now let's bend our knees and get a little bit of leg action happening where we are too. We'll straighten our legs, turn our toes forward and release our arms out to the side. Then heel, toe. Our feet are hip distance, and we'll make our way to the front edge of our mat and stand into our mountain. So lots of heart opening, big postures, even a little bit of a tippy outburst. Let's stand and get grounded again. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. And then exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs or shins or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart. We bend our knees so our palms can get flat for our down dog. From our down dog, we shift to plank, shoulders over wrists. Bring our knees to our mat. Lower all the way onto our belly. Uncurl our toes into cobra or our sphinx pose. And then we'll lower down here and bend our knees so we're on our bellies. And reach back with our hands. This is true shoulder extension, when our arms go back behind our body. For many of us, actually, let's all do it this way first. We won't hold on, so that gives you a different read, a different feel. What if you were to try to lift your thighs off the ground, but imagine that you're tucking your tailbone? And it may not go very far, that's fine. Your hamstrings are going to sing in an opposite direction as when we were straightening them and folding. And then lower down, let's make our pillow and windshield wiper our feet for a moment. Once again, with our knees bent, we'll reach back and you could redo what we just did, or maybe you can reach your feet. You can also lasso them with a kitchen towel if you want to try it that way. Let's be careful not to overuse our chin. Chin parallel to the ground, we kick our legs up, maybe a little up and back if you're holding on. Nothing radical, just experimental, and then we pause. Release down. Roll over onto your back. When you're lying on your back, bend your knees and place your feet hip distance on your mat. Palms flat. Think about what we just did. We've basically flipped it upside down. We're going to do almost the same thing here in bridge. So shimmy your shoulder blades underneath you. Lift your hips up. Palms can press into the ground. You might interlace and snuggle your shoulder blades a little bit more beneath you. Gently lower yourself down. Pause for a moment, hand on your heart, hand on your low belly. Scoot your hips to the right. Let your knees drop over to the left. You might cross your right knee over your left knee. And then we switch sides. Scoot your hips one direction, let your knees fall the opposite direction, and maybe you cross your top knee over your bottom knee. Then we bring ourselves down the middle. And for a Shavasana option, bottoms of your feet together, 2 blocks or books underneath your thighs, so you feel that there's a place of relaxation and a little bit of a hip opener at the same time. If you don't enjoy this, a Shavasana, the way we usually take it with straight legs, is perfect. And then we'll snuggle in and rest and digest for 2 minutes of silence together. If you have your thighs supported by blocks, take your hands to your outer thighs and bring your knees towards each other slowly. So we do that mindfully. Move your blocks out of your way. All of us will roll to either side. Use our hands so that our head can be the last thing to come up to a comfortable way to sit. And then once we're seated, palms up or down. Give yourself a moment to feel all the feels. I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I look forward to us doing it again together.